Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to some more StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. Now recently in StarCraft 2 we've been seeing quite a couple of changes as far as unit compositions go. Whereas for example back in the day, in pretty much all of the matchups you had like one or two strategies to go for. Right now it seems that a lot more Zerg players at the very least are mixing it up. So for example in Zerg vs Protoss we see a lot of Zergs first off going for Roaches, then switching into Mutalisks, but then for example going back to watch Roaches again and playing a style that is based around Roach Muta. The same goes for Zerg vs Zerg, where we see that same unit composition pop up as well, but people also for example go Lurker into Muta, into Lurker, into like really weird unit compositions that really weren't part of the meta game whatsoever just really a few months ago. Now, in the Zerg vs Terran matchup, it seems to be pretty standard still. You either focus on Roach Ravager or you focus on Mutalisks Bane, and those are the two main options that you have. Now, obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that the meta is going to be changing anytime soon, but I have been experiencing quite some changes as well as far as that matchup goes, in particular while trying out some different things myself. So, in this particular game, I find out that my opponent is going for a little bit of a wonky build. I found out that he's doing something different than the standard is. So what exactly would I consider to be the standard right now? It would be something like a barracks into a second base, so he goes for a quick second command center, then he switches into some Hellion play, maybe some Liberator, Harass, and that sort of thing. Now, in this particular match, I find out that my opponent is basically skipping that whole, like, Hellion shenanigans, and he's just going straight into a heavy bio play. And I figured, it's about time to switch it up. So, normally, you either play, like I said, Roach Ravager, or you play Mutalisks Bane. Now, there's a couple of advantages to both. First and foremost, obviously, Roach Ravager is great against taking out straight out armies and basically trying to take care of all the armies that the Terran can throw at you, but it's really weak against drops. And later on into the game, it's also not particularly great as, you know, once they finish up their +3/+3 upgrade, that unit composition just sort of seems to fall off. But it's really good for early game play as you don't really need to worry about any shenanigans whatsoever. You can just sort of, you know, make a couple of roaches and basically be safe against everything that the Terran can throw at you. Then, the advantages of Mutalisks Bane is that it's really good against drop play. It's really good for like late game transitions as well. But the early to mid game part of the game is substantially more difficult. Plus you need to micro your ass off in order to properly make that unit composition work. So, there's advantages to both, right? And in this particular case, I wanted to go for Roach Ravager, which is the style that I have basically been playing exclusively in all of the Zerg vs Terran in Legacy of the Void. Now, back in the day, I used to play a lot more Mutalisks Bane, and I like the fact how it plays out. I just find it really difficult to make it work properly against Terran right now with all the different builds that they've got. Now, one of the things that I've also started incorporating into my own play, and that actually led me to go for a bit of a different unit composition, is the fact that I've been going a lot more for Overlord Scouts. So as you can see right now, I'm trying to take that third base after analyzing that my opponent took the natural. Sadly, as you will be able to find out very shortly, that drone does end up falling there, and my Zerglings are going to be forced to run. Link speed isn't quite done yet, so I'm not going to be able to escort the worker. But very shortly, at around 3 minutes and 30 seconds, is when I start flying in that Overlord, or at the very least, when I mean to be flying in that Overlord. I've been doing that in Zerg vs Terran and in Zerg vs Protoss, and it's been giving me some good information. So there we go. I'm going to be flying in the Overlord. I know that he's got Marines out on the other side of his base, but I'm trying to get a peek here at what his buildings are like. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not he's got a command center out, whether or not he's got something, you know, a little bit more cheesy out, whether or not he's adding on an extra barracks, and this is what I find here. So, first and foremost, I see these units right here, right? These buildings. I know he's got 2 factories. I know he's probably getting Stimpak in this one. This seems to be the standard. If you see the little green light that is turned on right there, you can basically assume it's going to be Stimpak at this point in the game. But I find out that he's got a factory that is producing a reactor, and he's also got a starport. Now, both of these things are basically, like, if you've not been playing very much StarCraft 2 or you haven't really been scouting very much, that may be a difficult situation to read, but he's definitely going to be switching over the reactor with that starport. Like, they positioned them like that, so you can start either producing double medevacs as soon as possible into the game, or if he's feeling a little bit cheesy, he will probably start producing, like, double, I don't know, Liberator or something, right? But generally speaking, it's going to be some sort of Stargate unit, or starport unit, rather. So at this point in time, I'm like, okay, what should my unit composition be? because I know he's gonna be skipping out the whole Hellion shenanigans. I don't need to rush my Roaches out, but my Mutas are also probably not gonna be the best bet, as he's already focusing on, you know, a lot of Marines himself. So I decided to not just go for the Roach Warren, but also for the Baneling Nest right here, as well as a single evolution chamber. So this is a little bit weird right here. I generally speaking don't do these kind of things, as I find them pretty difficult to control, but I found out in this game that a combination of Mutaling Bane, or not Mutaling Bane, sorry, Ling Bane and Roach Ravager works out brilliantly against pretty much everything the Terran can throw at me. Now obviously I have only been practicing this in a handful of games, but I can tell you that once you get a really strong timing attack going, with for example +1 armor, on your Roaches, Ravagers, Zerglings and Banelings, with Baneling speed and Roach speed, which coincidentally actually are just as long as far as upgrade time goes, you get a stupidly powerful attack. So I'm trying right now to obviously hold on to this aggression my opponent is doing. A little bit of a smart move right here by my opponent. He did decide to fly by my overlords. I didn't see him get all these units across the map. I have been droning up here knowing that he's gonna be pushing soon. I tried to squeeze out as many workers here as possible, and now I finally start producing Roaches, Zerglings and Banelings, and very shortly, once I need to, I can start adding on some of the Ravagers as well. So obviously I will need to use my queens here as well to try and deal with all of the drop shenanigans that my opponent is throwing at me. But this already, as you can see, is working out extremely well. Like, we got rid of half of that army just with a couple of Banelings. Really wasn't that big of an investment at all. But this is something I actually was simply not aware of. So I do want to be starting up this upgrade. So these two upgrades right here, the centrifugal hooks for the Banelings that make them roll, and then also the Glio Reconstitution for the Roach speed that basically just makes them faster, actually have the exact same upgrade time. They have the exact same upgrade time. So in many games, I have found that you can actually push out with a really big army with Roach Ravager, Zergling, Baneling, right when those two finish, and your opponent can do very, very little against it. Now in this particular match, my opponent is going to be a little bit more annoying, but I found out that these upgrades right here, these group of upgrades are really good. Basically, if you get the +1 carapace, your Banelings are a lot better against things such as, for example, siege tanks, and it can actually not get one-shot very easily at all. So I'm going for a mix-up between Roach, Ravager, Zergling, Baneling, and obviously, if I want to, I could transition into Mutalisk as well. And I know that it's something that some of the pros have been doing as well at the very highest level of play. It's very difficult to make those transitions, however, just because it's obviously pretty expensive to put up a Spire, and if you're not macroing very well, that's going to be something that could cost you quite easily. But now that I got a handful of Roaches out, I can definitely start taking these engagements, knowing that my opponent obviously is going to be forced out of here any moment right now, and he does indeed decide to go home. So at this point, I got a really nice setup, right? I got an upgrade train right here that is currently in progress. These upgrades will all finish up roughly at the same time. I'm just simply going to start producing as many units as I possibly can. Now, here's my thought process. I go heavy Roach Ravager here initially. I try and make as many Roaches here as I possibly can, because Mutalisks, Zerglings finish up much faster than Roaches do, plus they move much faster. So as long as I reinforce, right, when I'm fighting with Massling, they're gonna be able to catch up to my Roach Ravager really easily. And then if I make a couple of Zerglings, like a handful of Zerglings right now, and I run those across the map as well, right when I want to go for that push, and I morph those into Banes, all of those units will sort of like get to the other side of the map at the same time, right? Just because, well, Zerglings move much faster, but they also are much better at, just simply running, right? Like, they move much faster and they also produce much faster. So I do get a fort base going here. Gonna be morphing in the Ravagers that I was talking about, and I'm just simply trying to spend all of my minerals to get the biggest army as I can. So here's that handful of links that I was talking about that will need to clean up this little bit of liberation that my opponent is trying to throw at me. But right now it is time to start moving. Now that my Roach speed is finished up, now that my Baneling speed has finished up, and now that my +1 armor has finished up as well. So right now I'm starting to reinforce with exclusively Zerglings. I may add on some Roaches in a little bit again, but here's what I'm talking about, right? So these Zerglings will finish up very shortly. I can use all of the initial Zerglings that I made to morph those into Banelings, and then I can start pushing with the Roaches and the Ravagers. Now you will need to micro very heavily, because I need to rain the corrosive bio everywhere it's going to be useful. I need to make sure that I take out any liberators with that, for example. I also need to make sure that my Banelings are not going to be running into buildings, and I need to make sure that I'm still reinforcing this army to the best of my abilities. But if you manage to get a reasonable engagement going, the Roach Ravager Zergling Baneling army is extremely powerful. So a couple of cool findings with it as well. If you are being under pressure, for example with drops, obviously you can just attack move back with the Zerglings that you've got, morph those into Banelings, and you're gonna be a-okay defending any kind of drop play. And at the same time, obviously, if you need to pull back all the way from the other side of the map, you can just do so with the Zerglings. They will be fine for defending. They just can sort of like leave your Roach Ravager in there. But as long as you scout with the Overlord in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, right? And you find out that your opponent isn't going for super, for example, super aggressive play. For example, if you would be going for heavy Liberator aggression early on, or if you would be going for heavy Hellion play early on, you can't just, you can't just make a Baneling Nest and a Roach Horn, because you probably are gonna fall if you just simply don't have enough units. But if your opponent is going for something a little bit more wonky, it seems that Roach Ravager Zergling Bane has a lot of potential. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Hopefully it inspired you to go ahead and try out this unit composition as well. If you do decide to do so, let me know down below in the comment section how things go. And other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one. Boom!